And now, a board game review from me, Joe Sallen.
You're watching the Sallen Coefficient, a new and nuanced approach to board game reviewing by a core gamer for core gamers. Ever wondered what they mean when they say fun, or good, or bad, or awesome? At the Sallen Coefficient, I will tell you more to help you make up your mind about whether or not a game is worth your time.
Sponsored by Game Surplus, bringing the world of board games to you at GameSurplus.com.
Hi, I'm Joe Sallen, and this is the Sallen Coefficient video review for Amun, the card game. Alright, first of all, let's talk about what Amun, the card game really is. Now, I've played Amun, and it's a really cool game, but it's also a longer board game. It's like closer to 60 to 90 minutes, and Amun, the card game more looks to distill the auction format into a much smaller and I would say unique system to actually like how you acquire provinces. And then the other components to the game are all looking to sort of have players interacting with each other and having different motivations and trying to collect more than another player of a certain symbol, and just all in all get the best card available. So I would say if you've played other games to compare this to, would be more so than regular Amun, I would say if you've played the game For Sale, which is an auction game in which you're going to be getting cards that represent properties, that sort of a system where each round there will be one property for every player, and it's just which one you get and how much you spend on it that matters. That's very similar to Amun, and also the board game Raw, which is also by Reiner Knizia, because in that game, the amount of money that you have is not represented by like just a certain supply, it's by tokens that have certain values on them. And in this game, you're going to be doing a similar system, only you will actually be designing which tokens you get as opposed to competing for them, because you will be choosing from a set of cards numbered 0 through 8 at the start of every round. Based on how much income you get, you'll be choosing numbers that add up to that income value. And so I'm always going to get my 0 card because I can always use that to pass or to bluff or something. But the other numbers that I have, numbered 1 through 8, the other cards, I can only win an auction with a single card. So the 8 card, for example, if I were to play the 8 card and bid on a certain region card, that means I'm going to win that card because it's the highest card in the game. So if that gives you an idea, it's like somewhere in between that sort of For Sale and Raw, but it has 3 phases, and it has some other nice pyramid type integration that does make it feel like Amun, the card game. I don't think that the name is like totally misleading or anything like that. It's just that the actual gameplay is very unique. And I find that with these types of games, especially from designers like Reiner Knizia, you really need to go into them not necessarily thinking about, okay, how is this like Amun? Does it distill what I like about Amun into a card game? Absolutely not. Don't even try for that in these games. Each one of these is going to be a different style of game, and I think that, using the Amun theme and using there is elements in this game that are like Amun, like you're fighting over being the pharaoh and you're wanting to get pyramids built in your regions. I mean, to a certain extent, it really is like Amun in terms of how you score points and whatnot, but the way the actual gameplay system works is, in my opinion, more similar to the other games that I've mentioned. All right, so the Amun card game does involve you starting each round with one of my favorite round starting mechanisms ever, and that's that at the start of the game, every player has $14 to spend, and you're going to, starting with whoever gets the first player marker, the Pharaoh marker, which is also the tiebreaker, so it kind of like balances out that you have to show people first, but because you have to choose all of your cards adding up to 14, and everybody knows all the cards you have at all times. They're always public information. And then the next player to your left, and so on. And then you'll flip over cards equal to the number of players, which, just as an aside, I really love this game with 5. I tried it with 2, and it was not good. It should not even say 2 on the side of the box. It just is not a 2-player game, in my opinion. It's best at the higher player counts. 4 I could see being just fine. 3 would be pushing it, but really I like the way it plays with 5 because you'll see all the cards in the game, and really you can be deliberate with how you bid. And it becomes more about the other systems in the game than just what regions came out. So the way the game works is you'll take cards equal to the number of players, and then on your turn, you will place a card in front of a region card to bid on that. Other players can actually outbid you, in which case you'll get your card back. If it becomes your turn again and your card's still out there, you just pass your turn because you've already got something that you're winning. But what will end up happening then is that, like, if somebody outbids you, you immediately get to outbid somebody else, or you could outbid the player that you're going for. If you've ever played an 18xx game, and I know that those are really heavy and really complicated, and you might have no idea what I'm talking about, there's something called a Waterfall Auction that happens in 18xx games. This is like a simple form of a Waterfall Auction where whenever you finally get to the point where all of the cards have been chosen, that's it. The round ends there. And the round, whoever kind of gets outbid has that choice as to, well, do I want to end the round here? Am I okay with that? Am I okay with taking the lowest card for a 0? Or do I really want other players to have to pay more? Or do I really want those cards that the other players have? So a lot of this game is going to be trying to get other players to pay too much for too little, or getting other players to, take the worst card, and they just can't. They just do not have the other tools or the other economy necessary to really make up for how bad that card is that they are taking. It's a very simple system in which you will end up doing this 3 times and then doing a scoring. Doing it again 3 times and doing a scoring. And what you'll end up doing is each round only carrying over the information of how many pyramids are on your 3 different region cards. You'll always then cover up all the rest of the information. Then after each round you've decided how many regions, which person gets which region card. Once you've determined that, there will be a phase called the offerings and favors. And this is one where each player selects cards secretly from what's left over, and then whoever bids the most gets like these free pyramids. And you can get up to 3 of them for free. And it's really great. I guess it's not necessarily free, you're paying for it, but you're not paying the exorbitant amounts that the game gives you the option to pay later on. On top of that, the amount that you are actually paying has an effect on how much income is generated in the game by the 2 ways to form income, which is the farms, which are on most cards in the game, and the caravans, which are very rare, but they can be really, really huge. Now, in my experience, caravans are not a very reliable source of income when you're playing a 5-player game. However, the farms and how much they produce will be, like, if I have 5 farms and you have 8 farms, I might not want the farms to produce that much. But the more that we donate to the gods, we're getting rewarded as an individual, but then also it determines how much the things will produce and whether or not caravans will produce. After that, there's a phase called, I think it's like revenue, and during revenue, it's one of my favorite mechanisms in games, and I can remember first seeing it in The Princes of Florence, and that is that when you take income, you have to immediately decide how much of it you're going to spend immediately on pyramids. And what you want to do for pyramids is, in Reiner Knizia fashion, you have 3 regions and you score the least. So whichever one of your regions has the least pyramids, you score that many points. And then you're going to be deciding how much you want to spend on pyramids, which is in the sort of Amun Re. If you've played Amun Re, the base game, it's in a each time you take another pyramid, it's going to cost you even more than the last one. And so, like, taking the most I think you can take is 9 pyramids, which costs like $55. Oh my, that's a lot of money. You're going to be then deciding how much you're spending on pyramids and how much you're hanging on to for the next round. You will then immediately decide how you're going to divvy up the money that you've hung on to for the next round in your cards that you choose, which are always public information. So you always know who has cards that can beat you. And you'll always know who has the cards in front of them that are competing with things that you want to do. Or you just want to make sure that your opponent, who's in this position where they have really great cards, but they have one column that's really weak, you want to make sure that that column ends up being really weak, so they just have to spend all that much more money to be able to get any points. So there is a lot of places where you can sort of, puzzle out, like, okay, well, if I bid here, I don't even want that card. But that person's going to get their card back, and they'll have the ability to bid on this other card that I don't want either, but they'll outbid somebody else. And you just kind of like, I start puzzling out, like, which card does each player want? How can I prevent them from getting it? Or how can I make them pay their biggest card so that way in the next round I have the biggest card out? And there's so many, like, it becomes a puzzle that you don't even realize how many different little nuances were all decided when you chose those cards at the beginning of the round. The card choice is the crux of this game. It really is. It's the fulcrum of Amun Re, something that really makes me excited to try teaching this to new players because it's easy to understand. You have so much money, choose cards that value up to that much, that add up to that much, and that's how much you have to bid. The fact that you can only win with a single card makes that system really, really matter in a very, very cool way. And so now we get to the point where I start telling you about my thoughts on the actual gameplay and whether or not the Sallen Coefficient and my personal review are the same, and what exactly are those numbers going to be. So simple 10-point scales. I'm rating this game in relation to all the other games that I have played and seen played and all that type of stuff. All the other games from what I understand, my current understanding of the hobby. And my view on Amun Re is that its Sallen Coefficient is the same as my personal enjoyment, because there's nothing about this game that makes me feel like I would like or dislike it more from a very subjective, the type of criteria that I wouldn't apply to other people, like the fact that I really enjoy Latin American themes and whatnot. There's a lot of things that I have personally, because of my experiences, that I wouldn't apply to you. However, since we're both gamers, I will apply certain ones to you, and that's the Sallen Coefficient, and that's going to be a rating of 8 out of 10. This is an 8 out of 10. I think that it is a fantastic game that is easy to teach new players, where your decisions are either very quick and you know kind of what you're getting at, and so the game doesn't take long, or it offers you this ability to puzzle out to a degree that's really at an interesting level, to where you're choosing your cards to try to dictate the flow of the round that's about to come, and then you'll be jockeying for different cards based on how these auctions come up. I really do love this system. I think it feels like something that, and other players have mentioned this to me, that it feels like it could have been a classic game that's been out for decades. Like Amun Re has been out for a little while, or like Ra, which has been out for a while. So this feels like a classic Knizia auction game, and it came out very recently. And from what I understand, it's not getting the love that it should be getting. So let's try to fix that, people. Anyway, my personal rating, also an 8 out of 10. Like I said, there's nothing that I think that's so subjective that I wouldn't want to apply to you that I would apply to Amun Re. I think that it's a very great game where it plays a great, a nice, quick playtime. And it's, like I said, something closer to between For Sale and Ra, but that uses some of the elements of Amun Re to make a very nice, cohesive experience that feels like a classic in this modern age of board gaming. I hope that you've enjoyed this review of the Sallen Coefficient. Hope you liked this video. Also subscribe and check out my other videos. And I'll keep doing these things.